Welcome inside the coach's room, and here we are. We're finally here. It's time for the Stanley Cup Finals, the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers in a repeat of last year's finals. So I thought it was time to go back inside the coach's room and talk a little bit about what to look for on Wednesday night. We're going to go through how we got here, what these teams, their paths to the final again, and what they look like. We're going to take a lot of look at statistics today. Then we're going to look at numbers and what the numbers look like through the first three series and getting these teams back to the finals. We're also going to take a look at last year, and only to the point of what has been different statistically from where these two teams were at a year ago, and does it matter? And lastly, might go to the whiteboard today to show a little bit of the areas that I think are going to make a difference in this series and break down some of the things on the whiteboard today on what's going to make a difference in this series. But let's start with how we got here for each teams. And I'm going to go with the Edmonton Oilers first. And when you look at what the Edmonton Oilers did to get into these playoffs right now, and you got to go how this team started. They started out red rotten in the playoffs. They started off on the road. In the first series, they go to LA, and LA smokes them. LA smokes them in the first two games, 12-7. Gave up 12 goals in 2 games. Skinner was red rotten. This team hadn't found their groove yet. They were giving up goals. They were giving up power play goals, 5 power play goals against in the first 2 games, and things were not going well. But things changed. And I tell you, the turning point in this series was Game 4. Game 4, to me, they came out in Game 3 at home and looked really good. I mean, we've seen how good this Edmonton Oilers team is at home. We'll talk about home and road a little bit later, but that was a defining moment where they came out and they beat the LA Kings 7-4 in Game 3. But in Game 4, LA's got the lead, and they got the lead late, and they've got the puck on their stick. And we talked about it when we looked a little deeper into that game with Quinton Byfield with the puck on his stick in Game 4, up by a goal, just needs to chip the puck out to center ice, and the game is over. And then LA takes a 3-1 lead with Skinner still not playing his best. We've got Pickard jumping in the net now, trying to save the day. And LA would be up 3-1 and going home. But that didn't happen. Byfield turns the puck over the blue line to Bouchard. Phenomenal play by Bouchard. And again, we're going to get to how good this defense has been for the Edmonton Oilers, not just in creating offense, but defending. That's the turning point of this series. Edmonton scores on the ensuing play. They score in overtime. They win the game, and then they win 2 more. They win 4 straight games against the LA Kings after coming out and just getting spanked in the first 2. And face it, they didn't play well. And I think that's one of the things that happens to a team as these playoffs continue. You progress and you evolve into the team that you are by the time you get to the Stanley Cup Finals. Let's face it, if the Edmonton Oilers play the Florida Panthers in Game 1 on April 21st, I don't think the Edmonton Oilers are ready for that. I don't think they had flipped the switch yet. It took them time to develop into who they became. It took time for them to develop their wall battles and playing the way that we're seeing them play now. They get to Vegas, and I'll be honest, I said this because you can go back and find the receipts. I said Vegas was going to be better than LA, deal than LA, get to the net better than LA. Power play was going to be better. This Vegas team was going to be difficult for them to get over. And Edmonton beats them in 5. And beat them convincingly. They get 3 or more goals in 4 of the 5 games. And more importantly, this is where you see the switch to the Skinner that you're seeing now. It finishes that series on back-to-back shutouts. And one of them is a 1-0 OT win to put the series away. So now you've got Skinner ramped up. That's what this series progression did. The injury to Pickard, I think it came at a time where they needed to get Skinner back in the net. I've said this before, and people get mad at me. Pickard's great. Calvin Pickard's a great goaltender. He's a good goaltender. But I don't know if he can get you all the way to Stanley Cup. He wins 6 straight games, did exactly what you needed him to do. But you're not hoisting the Stanley Cup, and you're not in the Stanley Cup Finals if not for Skinner playing the way Skinner's playing, and he needed to get back in, and he got back in because of the injury to Pickard, and then he gets back-to-back shutouts in Game 4 and Game 5 against Vegas, and now he has arrived. And I think that was one of the big things that got them through that. And the interesting thing, too, in this round is where you saw the diminished role of Draisaitl and McDavid. They scored 3 goals in that round combined. Corey Perry had 3 goals in that round. So this was the first time where you go, oh my goodness, this isn't all Draisaitl and McDavid. This is a balanced team. This team can do more. And then they go into Dallas, and now they're starting to create their identity. Now they're becoming the team that you want them to be going into the finals. You see McDavid leading the way. You see the effort on the road in Dallas, where they get a win 3-0 and another shutout in Dallas, and save the third period of game one. They made it come out of there sweeping Dallas. I know Dallas Stars fans don't want to hear that, but this was a power play for Dallas that got them back on the board. They were being outplayed through 40 minutes. Edmonton found their legs, and not just their legs, but they found their identity. This is who they became, and this is the playoff identity of the Edmonton Oilers. And I do think that makes a big difference in what they have become and what you're seeing from them now. And one of the things in that series too that you found is that we're scoring different ways again. This is a team now that can get to the net hard. This is a team that can generate offense from going low to high in the zone and getting the defenseman to get pucks on the net with traffic. They showed more grit. They were able to win those wall battles and just chip the puck ahead through the neutral. And it wasn't, trust me, they got those stretch passes through and their speed through the rush. But they're also able to do it by chipping the puck along and getting those wall battles against the Dallas Stars and winning those wall battles. So it started to evolve into a different team, and they were able to put the Dallas Stars out. Again, a team that was a good hockey team. And of the three teams they faced, the Dallas Stars were the best team they played, but it wasn't even close. Edmonton put that team away in 5 games, and it wasn't even close. And you go to Florida's side, where Florida limped in to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Kid yourself. Tkachuk was hurt and hadn't played since 4 Nations. Ekblad was suspended. They were giving guys rest down the stretch. They were losing games down the stretch. Bobrovsky was giving up goals down the stretch. They did not look like the Florida Panthers at all. Marchand was hurt when he came in, and he hadn't played with most of the team yet. He was just kind of getting ramped up as the playoffs were coming. You go, okay, Tampa Bay's rolling. Vasilevsky's been the best goalie since January 1st. Kucherov's playing like an MVP candidate down the stretch. This Tampa Bay team is good. They're ready. They made some acquisitions at the trade deadline. They're ready to win. They're going to catch Tampa. They're going to catch Florida before they can get rolling. Tampa's going to win this series. I believe that. I said it here. I said Tampa Bay is going to be in the Stanley Cup Final. I love the way the Tampa Bay Lightning team was playing. They were getting balanced scoring. Gensel was amazing on the power play, and Florida just wasn't ready. And then they were. And that's what good teams do. The playoffs started, and they flipped a switch. And they start off with 2 wins in Tampa, outscoring Tampa Bay 8-2. After I just got done telling how good Vasilevsky was, they outscored them 8-2 in Tampa, and Florida was back. And Florida looked like Florida. And they were physical, and they were dominating on the walls. They were getting pucks out of the corners, up to their defense with traffic and rebounds and screens. Exactly what we saw Florida do a year ago when we said, oh, Florida's back. Then they were in Toronto, and they go up to Toronto, and then they lose both games. The one thing about this team, they didn't finish. They finished 3 points in the standings below Edmonton, which now makes them go to Edmonton first. But they started off all 3 series on the road. And when you go into Toronto, a team that plays fast, that gets pucks through the neutral zone quickly, that gets in behind their opposing defense, that have high-skill players that can find openings in the offensive zone. Does that sound familiar? It might later. They struggled, and Toronto wins the first 2 games. And both teams were scoring. It was 9-7 combined over those 2 games, and Florida goes back home in trouble. And even in game 3, where they win in overtime, they started to play. They started to play in that game in the second and the third period. We started going, oh, okay, maybe Florida's coming back. Game 4, you go, uh-oh. Florida's back. They found it. They weren't playing like the Florida Panthers. They weren't dominating the play. They weren't smothering the Toronto Maple Leafs through the neutral zone. They were turning over too many pucks. They weren't that identity that we're accustomed to, or getting pucks in off of the forecheck and driving into that. It wasn't happening until game 4. And then they were different, and they were much different. They win the next 2 games as combined 8-1. And then you go and look what they did to Toronto in game 7 in Toronto, 6-1. And Florida was back. And similar to Edmonton, when they got to the conference finals, they were just better. They were so much better than the Carolina Hurricanes that know how to play one way, that play smothering and aggressive and in your face. And they played a Carolina team that just struggled to create offense. And the Florida Panthers held them to 2 or fewer goals in 3 of the 5. Outscored them badly in the first 3 games. You ended up with 16-4 over the first 3 games. And this series was all but over through 3 games. And Carolina wins 1 game in Florida, shuts them out 3-0. But just like they did when Toronto shut them out 2-0 in game 6, they go and spank them, and they win 5-3. And this is where we are. So I think both teams are playing really good hockey. This is who they are now. As the Stanley Cup playoffs approach and the Stanley Cup Finals approach, they have just defined what they are and what their good aspects and assets are and their ability to play, what they are offensively and defensively. So I thought today we take some numbers instead of just going and looking at how they're playing. We're gonna do that. The video breakdowns are coming tomorrow. They are. We're gonna have some serious video breakdowns, and that's gonna happen tomorrow. But we are gonna show. We're gonna get to some stats, and we're gonna see what these statistics look like. So I want to go by the numbers and what these teams are doing as they come into the Stanley Cup Finals, and by the numbers right now. This is the Stanley Cup Finals as they are right now, coming into through 3 rounds. Goals for per game, Florida 3.8, Edmonton 4.6. Edmonton's first of all playoff teams in goals for per game of 4.06. Florida's third with 3.88. These are teams that are going to score. These are teams that have the ability to score and put numbers up on the board. Edmonton's always had that. Edmonton's always had the ability to put numbers up. And one of the ways they've you look at the Edmonton Oilers 6-5, 7-4. Yeah, that's an Edmonton Oilers win. But then we get to the goals against stat. And Florida, not too surprisingly, because the way they defend, they're first with a 2.29 right now. They're 2.29 and they're first. But where's Edmonton? Their goals against average through 3 rounds is 2.81. They are fourth. That is a big shift from what we're expecting from the Edmonton Oilers. And goals are up. Hey, but you're looking at teams scoring, Edmonton scoring 4.06, but they're only giving up 2.81. That's outstanding. So I think that's a big shift for this team. The power play, Edmonton's at 30%, no big deal, but that's fourth. Last year, you look at their power play was first going in. Florida's power play struggled a little bit. They're 23.2%. They're sixth in the league right now, and I think they're going to have to get it going. Why? Because the penalty kill of the Edmonton Oilers has been rotten. The penalty kill of the Edmonton Oilers is 14th. 14th. And when you look at the numbers by the Edmonton Oilers through this, they gave up power play goals to the Dallas Stars in both the last 2 games, and they gave up power play goals, gave up 5 over the 5 games. They're going to have to be better. They can't give up and be 66% on the penalty kill going against a Florida Panther power play. They can't. And how is the Florida penalty kill? That's number 1. It's first. It's the best. And when you look at the defensive metrics right now, goals against average and penalty kill, Florida is first. But you look at the offensive numbers, and Edmonton's first in goals for per game. So I think that's one of the key matchups. Clearly, one of the biggest matchups is how well can Florida defend against an Edmonton Oilers that can put up numbers. And I think that's going to be one of the areas that we talk about is, can Edmonton find an offense against a Florida Panther team that defends better? And that's going to be a key matchup. When we look at some of the other numbers offensively, shots for, Edmonton is second through the playoffs, where Florida's ninth. Florida's not getting a lot of shots on goal. They're averaging 27.1 to Florida's 30.8. But shots against per game, again, we talk about defensive metrics. Florida's third fewest at 24.2. Edmonton's giving up 27. Hits per 60 is a big one. The Florida Panthers are first in hits per 60 with 47 hits per 60 minutes. Edmonton is sixth with 38.7. 10 more hits per game by the Florida Panthers. It's going to make a difference. They haven't had to face a team. Edmonton hasn't faced a team that is as physical as the Florida Panthers. Now, for Florida, can they walk that line of being physical without going to the penalty box? It's going to be a big matchup. We've seen Edmonton get better along the walls, and they're a team that can play physical. The problem, and one of the concerns, is the loss of Zach Hyman and what he brings physically and what his physical abilities are, and bringing that, his ability to muck it up along the wall. Evander Kane's going to have to bring some of that. Connor Brown is expected to be back in the lineup. He's going to bring some of that. And the Edmonton Oilers are just going to have to play tougher as a team. Darnell Nurse is going to have to get involved physically. You're going to have to see Edmonton find a way to be able to stay in this game physically. And it's most evident on the forecheck of the Florida Panthers. And the key way to do that and avoid that physical play of the Florida forecheck is to move the puck. And Edmonton's defense have shown the ability to move the puck quickly and efficiently and help propel this team's transition game up the ice and get the puck up the ice quickly. So I think one of the ways they can evade some of this physical pressure is to get the puck moving up the ice. And I think that's going to be key for the Edmonton Oilers as this goes along. Now, one of the other numbers I want to look at is their home and road records. The Edmonton Oilers at home are 6-1. 6-1 at home. Florida is 4-3. 4-3 at home. That's not you're a game above 500 going through the playoffs like this. That's not great. And they've lost 2 of their last 3 at home. So when you look at starting on the road, that might be okay for the Florida Panthers because their road record is 8-2 on the road. 8-2. 8-2 on the road for the Florida Panthers. And they're going to need to be good on the road because this is one of the differences in this series versus last year's is they're starting on the road. They're starting off in Edmonton, and Edmonton is fantastic at home. And can they make a difference? And does it make a difference in this series? Because Edmonton started the last 3 series on the road. They started off Dallas, Vegas, and LA on the road. And for Florida, yeah, they're not too bad. How about this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight road wins. So when we talk about what some of the factors are going to be, who is better in Edmonton? Can Edmonton continue their 6-1 roll, or is Florida going to be 8-2 and continue to be as strong as they are on the road? You're going to see right away. And I think Edmonton's going to have the advantage in game 1. I think they're starting off on home, and people that have been in the Edmonton area during a playoff run, it is electric. And it is different, and the streets are buzzing with orange and blue. Everybody knows this game is on, and there's just this level of excitement. Sorry, Florida. When you go to Florida and Sunrise, it's just not there. And partly because it's a much larger metro area. You're not going to downtown. What is it? Is it Fort Lauderdale? Is it Sunrise? Is it downtown Miami? It's just different. So they don't have that small town feel of a team, a fan base supporting them. So that's why I think you watch that first 10 minutes of game 1, and you're going to hear the roof come off that building. And you're going to see Connor McDavid buzzing around because this is what he willed his team to do. I like Edmonton in game 1. I really do. I think this is going to be a key for Florida to survive game 1. Not saying they can't win, but they're going to have to survive it. Edmonton is coming out hot in game 1. They're coming out flying on pucks. Expect them to get a big offensive push through the neutral zone. Expect them to be at their best early in this game. And Florida's going to have to withstand that push. Trust me, Florida's ready for it. Like Paul Maurice, there's no surprises at this point of the season. He's ready. He's ready for a push. And he's the message going to be start on time. We got to start on time. We got to start on time. And they're going to hear that for days. They're going to hear it at the hotel. They're going to hear it in meetings. Start on time. Be ready to play. Edmonton's going to get all the favorable matchups. They're going to keep McDavid away from Barkov. You don't want him getting into those kind of issues against some of the top defending forward in the National Hockey League. They're going to get the matchups they want. They're going to have the ability to get him in every zone start. So I think this is going to be one of those things where you talk about home and road where it makes a difference. Yes, this is going to be a key for the Edmonton Oilers to start off huge at home. Some other things to look for statistically from the Edmonton Oilers. We talk about their depth. They've got players with 3 or more goals this year in the playoffs. Through 3 rounds, they have 11. Last year, through 3 rounds, they had 8. Leading in goals right now, yeah, Draisaitl and Petey are tied with 7. Last year was Hyman with 14 goals. And as we're talking about their lopsided scoring, part of that was on Hyman. Corey Perry's got 7 goals in this year. You know where he's going to be. He's going to be in front of the blue paint on the power play and 5-on-5. He's going to fill the role that Hyman had, winning battles off the wall around the blue paint, getting pucks to that area. He's going to be hard to play against. He's going to tip, screen, push, shove, and he's going to be a pain in the rear for the Florida Panthers. And look for him to be there. And so you look at the shift in scoring where they were so top heavy a year ago, and they had 8 goals, 8 players with 3 or more. This year, they've got 11. You've got 2 players tied with 7. And you look at their back end, Bouchard last season, through 3 rounds, he had 27 points. This year, he's got 17. Again, more balanced scoring throughout this lineup. Some other things to keep an eye on for the Edmonton Oilers. They lead the playoffs right now. And this is thanks to our friends at Staff Leads. They lead the playoffs with in slot shot attempts per game. They lead every team in the playoffs with slot shot attempts. To say that 3 times fast, with just over 11.5. Florida's 7th in getting to the inside. And we know how important it is to get to the inside. Edmonton gets there. Now, they haven't had to face the Florida Panthers defending yet, but this is a team that get to the inside. They get to the inside better than every single team in the National Hockey League playoffs so far. They're second right now in the playoffs in total scoring chances per game. Colorado was first in their 7-game series against the Dallas Stars. Edmonton is second in scoring chances per game. Florida's 8th. Florida's not generating the offense the Edmonton Oilers are. This is just what you want to expect, and expect what you're going to see from the Edmonton Oilers is their ability to put up offensive numbers. They lead the playoffs in expected goals off the rush. No one's surprised by that. This Edmonton Oilers, and credit the defense, and their ability to get pucks up through the neutral zone. Yes, they have McDavid and Draisaitl who use their speed through the neutral zone. Absolutely. But it's because of the ability for their defensemen. And guess what? It's most of their defense. All of their defense are getting the puck up more quickly. And we haven't even seen what Ekholm's going to completely do to the Stanley Cup Finals because he's still getting his legs underneath him. Big surprise to no one. Their top scoring line 5-on-5 is minimum 20 minutes. Perry, McDavid, and Draisaitl have 7 goals. Second, though, is Janmark, Arvidsson, and Podkolzin with 5 goals. And again, it goes to the depth scoring of this Edmonton Oilers crew. And it matters. And they're not the team they were a year ago with scoring and dominated by scoring and dominated by 2 players that are scoring. And I'm going to prove it. And I think this is a big deal. And I think this is one of the biggest deals for the Edmonton Oilers. And I think this is going to make a difference. And we talk about the big 2. And you look at the total goals that this team has scored through 3 rounds this year and last year. Last year, they scored 63 goals through 3 rounds. This year, they have 65. It's similar. That's similar. The goals scored last year, 15 goals were actually scored by McDavid or Draisaitl. It's 24%. Almost 1/4 of the goals were scored by those 2. This year, it's 13 goals at 20%. So 1 out of every 5 instead of 1 out of every 4. And I know that might not seem like much, but look at this next stat. A goal with a point by McDavid or Draisaitl, either goal or assist, where one of them had something to do with the goal. Last year, 44 of the 63 goals, 44 out of 63, 69.8% of the goals through 3 rounds of the playoffs. Nearly 70% of the goals, 7 out of 10, had Draisaitl or McDavid scoring or assisting on it. That is a huge workload. And 70% of the goals they scored were from these 2 players. That's massive and dominating, and not just dominating, but this was their offense. That was it. It was 29-97. Those were the 2 players that got them there, and that was it. The difference? This year, it's 38 out of 65. That McDavid and Draisaitl assisted or scored on 38 out of 65 for a total of 58.5%. So instead of 70%, it's 58%. That's a big difference. It's above half, and they're involved in more than half of their goals by the Edmonton Oilers, and that matters. But when you look at this total goals without McDavid or Draisaitl, without them, not involved in an assist or a goal. Last season, there were 19 goals total. 19 goals through 3 rounds that did not have a goal or assist by McDavid or Draisaitl. 30%. 30% of all of the goals had nothing to do with Draisaitl and McDavid. This year, it's 27 out of 65. 41.5% of the goals, 4 out of 10 goals, have nothing to do with Draisaitl and McDavid. That's a huge stat. And what that goes to show is that these 2 players, however they are helping, and believe me, this doesn't mean that 29 and 97 aren't going to be the biggest influence on the offense for the Edmonton Oilers, because they are. They just are. And if you're the Florida Panthers, you have to keep those guys off the scoreboard, and you have to, when they're on the ice, you got to try to get off the ice better or even against 29 or 97. But what it does show is the ability for the Edmonton Oilers to score beyond those 2, beyond McDavid and Draisaitl. And they've done that. This team is deeper. They're stronger. Their scoring is spread out. They defend better. And it showed in the numbers. And there's one more area we have to look at, is the goalies. And when you look at the total playoffs, as of right now, the goals against average, Bobrovsky is 2.11. Skinner is 2.53. 2.5 goals for Skinner from where he was. Oh, buddy. Huge improvement. Expected goals against, and I know I talk about expected goals against, not a huge goals against, expected goals against guy, but I'm just giving you the expected goals against based on shots where, and all the metrics that people give you. Expected goals against average for Bobrovsky is 2.6. His actual is 2.1. So he's better than expected. Skinner, expected goals against average is 2.7, and he's actually 2.5. So he's better than expected. They're both playing better than expected. Save percentage, Bobrovsky is a 912. Skinner's a 904. Skinner's above 900 for a guy that started struggling. Shutouts, even with 3. But here's a stat I want to show you. And you see Skinner at a 253 goals against and a save percentage of 904. Let's take out just the conference finals. Just the conference finals. Skinner in the conference finals had a goals against average of 2.01 and a save percentage of 924. So now you get to throw out those bad games against the LA Kings. Shutouts 1, saves 122. So his save percentage at 924 through the conference finals and goals against a 201. Yeah, well, Bobrovsky wasn't too shabby either. His conference finals, 1.6 goals against average, under 2. Save percentage, 935. So he beat Skinner both those categories, but keep in mind how well this Florida Panthers team defends. He also had 1 shutout and his saves are 116. So Skinner ends up with 6 more saves than Bobrovsky. And when you see these two goalie comparisons, and you're going to see these goalie comparisons throughout, but you have to take a look at what happened in the Eastern Finals and the Western Finals. What they did recently. What have you done for me lately? And right now, Skinner's on his game, but so is Bobrovsky. So both of these goaltenders are playing extremely well. One other thing I want to look at is because it's the same 2 teams from a year ago. And I talked already about the matchup with Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid that are scoring. They're still the offensive leaders, but they're not dominating like they did a year ago, meaning that there's a deeper scoring. But I wanted to see what else is different. So I went through last year and this year through 3 rounds. So these are last year numbers through 3 rounds. They do not include the Stanley Cup playoffs. When we look at goals, so goals for a year ago, the Panthers were at 3.24 goals per game a year ago through 3 rounds. This year at 3.88. So they're scoring more than they did a year ago. Goals against average last year and this year, 2.29. Same, identical. Their goals against average through 3 rounds is exactly the same. And goal differential, meaning, it's easy math here, goals for per game minus goals against per game gives you a goal differential last year of 0.95. This year, they're better. It's 1.59. So they're a goal and a half better every single game. Last year was just under 1 goal. But look at the Edmonton Oilers. Goals for per game a year ago through 3 rounds, they were 3.5 goals per game, 3.5. This year, they're 4.06. Over 4 goals per game. Goals against average last year, 2.61. This year, 2.81. Giving up more, but keep in mind, a lot of that's from these early series against the LA Kings. So what does that do for their goal differential through 3 rounds? Last year was 0.89. Positive goal differential. This year, it's 1.25. So they're more than a goal per game better than their opponent, and so is Florida. Incredibly tight in how these 2 teams, and they both improved on where they were a year ago offensively. And then you got to look at another stat is shots. Shots for Florida went from 33.2 last year to 27.1 this year. They're shooting less. They're getting more shots, fewer shots on net than they were a year ago. They're not as dominating offensively in shot attempts. Shot against, almost identical. 24.5 a year ago to 24.2 this year. Defensively, they're the same. We show goals against with this game. Shots were the same team. Goal differential or shot differential for this team, though, is huge. Last year, because of their offensive outbursts and how well they got low to high with traffic, their shot differential a year ago going into the finals was 8.7 shots more than their opponent. 8.7. This year, it's 2.9. That has dropped significantly. That's 5 shots per game different. That's a big deal. Their ability to take 5 shots less per game. Edmonton, 2.89 last year to 30.8. They're shooting more. 2 more shots per game. Shots against has also gone up by 2, 25.0 to 27.0 shots against per game. So last year, their shot differential was 3.9 shots more than their opponent. This year, it's 3.8. It's the same. So for me, the biggest stat here is the ability to Florida to get shots on a team like the Edmonton Oilers that defends extremely well. Now, they don't defend like the Carolina Hurricanes. They don't smother you with sticks and so ultimately ultra aggressive on the pucks. So will that increase that shot volume? And it may. And here's another statistic to look at from a year ago is the special teams. I mean, you look at the special teams through 3 rounds last year. Florida's power play last year, 23.3. This year, 23.2. This is the same. It's the same. You can see the consistency in their game. Penalty kill, 88.2 to 87.9. Very similar again, 0.3 percentage points, incredibly close. So we combined, and this is something you do as in the coach's room where you combine their percentages, add one to the other, and you want to be above 100. That's kind of the benchmark. To give you an idea, there are 18 teams this year in the regular season above the 100 mark. 18 out of 32 were above 100. And right now, last year combined, Florida was 111.5 when you add up their power play and penalty kill. 111.5. This year, 111.1. Again, it's the same. It's consistent. This is the Florida Panthers. The concern is Edmonton. Edmonton dominated in special teams year ago. They were 37.3 on the power play. 37.3 on the power play last year. Dominating. First of all teams in the playoffs at 37.3. They're 30% this year. Penalty kill, they were first through 3 rounds at 93.9. They were the best penalty killing team through 3 rounds a year ago. This year, they're 66%. 66. It's not very good. And the big key is when you combine those numbers, and again, you want to be above 100. Last year, they were 131.2. And I'm not kidding. I've never seen a number that high. 131.2 in special teams combined. This year, 96.0. Below average. And if you use the regular season metrics, that's in the 20s. Like that's not good. It's got to be better. And I think special teams is going to be huge for these two teams. And Edmonton's going to have to kill penalties better than they have through the first 3 rounds. And a lot of that was against an LA King team before Skinner got playing better and before the Edmonton Oilers limited their opponents on the penalty kill. And taking penalties is going to make a difference. Penalties per game is going to make a difference. Who can walk that line of being physical without sitting in the penalty box? Who can be that agitator? Is it going to be Perry and Kane, or is it going to be Tkachuk and Bennett? And who's going to be sitting in the penalty box? Is Marchand going to be spending all night in the penalty box? This is going to be one of those telling points of the series, because special teams are going to matter. They always matter. And right now, the Edmonton Oilers, however well they're playing on the power play at 30%, it's not what they were last year. They were dominant. Remember that last year's power play? That's one of the best power plays in the history of the league. When they got on the ice, they were going to score. It's not the same this year. And penalty killing, clearly not the same. And without Zach Hyman, what kind of a hole does that leave? I don't know. Edmonton's been very high on Corey Perry in front of the net, but still not Zach Hyman. And will that matter as the series goes on? Well, I want to talk about predictions and what I predict is going to happen in this series, but I'm not going to today. I do think Edmonton Oilers has the advantage in game 1. But one of the things as a video coach is you have to go through the video. And I've been spending the last several days going through the video, how every goal was scored in this playoffs, how every goal scored against these teams in the playoffs. And I'm starting to get numbers on how and what those numbers are going to look like and what areas of the ice are going to matter to these teams. And here we go. It's now whiteboard time. And got some new markers, so I hope they work. I haven't really tried them yet. But this will give you an idea of some of the areas to look for and where teams are going to have the advantage. And for the Florida Panthers, and for this exercise, by the way, Florida is going to be in red, and the Edmonton Oilers are going to be in blue for this exercise. One of the things that the Florida Panthers do extremely well is they get pucks to this area. They get pucks to the front of the net, but they do it by creating turnovers along the wall and then getting to this area. They're extremely good at that. Through the playoffs, they have 19 goals off of the forecheck, which is an incredible, important stat, off of the forecheck and creating turnovers along the wall and getting pucks to the net. But on the forecheck, when you're looking at them coming in hard with one player, they'll have a second player come in. We talked about one thing with Florida's forecheck that I really, really like is the third player is not diving in. You saw that with Carolina. You saw it with New Jersey, those teams in that third player getting lost. Their third player is going to be incredibly responsible and stay above the play until that first play is moved. So when Edmonton makes that play up the wall, then that player will attack. Or they're going to get the defenseman to pinch and that forward to fill. That's what's making them so dangerous along the wall. Their defenseman's ability to pinch with support in behind. They create a turnover, and then everybody on the ice knows the puck is getting to this area of the ice, and everybody gets to the net. They've scored 19 goals off of the forecheck or off of those turnovers that go pucks to the net. Edmonton has given up 7 goals. that same way by turning pucks over off of the forecheck. That's one of the areas that is going to be a huge, huge battle area, is the area in front of the net in front of Skinner. Can Edmonton break out clean? They had problems. They had problems breaking out and turning pucks over off of the forecheck, specifically against Florida in this, or excuse me, Vegas in the second round. Will they turn pucks over there? So that's one of the crucial areas. Let's go the other way. What does Edmonton do extremely well? Well, they go this way. They go this way as good as any team in the National Hockey League. They get rush chances. They have 21 rush goals that either were created off neutral zone turnovers or off of the rush and stretch plays out of their own zone. So what is that going to look like? What does that mean, and why is that important? Well, when the Edmonton Oilers are going this way, and you get a forward here and a forward here, the one thing that the Florida Panthers, and they're not going to change, by the way, because this is how they play, their defensemen are going to be up tight on these forwards. They're going to be tight. And we talk about the gap. They have an extremely tight gap, and they're going to be uptight against these Edmonton Oilers players. That is going to be one of the biggest battlegrounds in this series, because when they can create turnovers here, the Florida Panthers, when they are on top of their opponent and they can create turnovers and they can get pucks going back the other way off of transition, they're dangerous. They have seven transition goals off of neutral zone turnovers. So the gap is incredibly important to helping them provide offense. For the Edmonton Oilers, it's about getting behind this. And they do it exceptionally well. They were winning these wall battles, and we talked about them gaining a little bit of ice at a time, something that they've been able to do this year. The other thing they do extremely well is they get a defenseman to get the puck up quickly and stretch the zone. They're able to get the puck up. And yeah, a lot of times it's to 97 or 29. They have abilities to stretch the zone. If they can get in behind this layer of defense, they are going to outnumber the Florida Panthers through the neutral zone, and they are going to create odd man rushes. They were just able to score 21 goals so far in this playoffs. Almost a third of their goals are coming off of the rush, off of neutral zone turnovers and rush chances through the neutral zone. So we talked about how Florida is going to try to generate here. Edmonton's going to try to generate here. And it's going to be one of those huge differences. We already talked about the differences in power play and penalty kill and how important that's going to be. The other area that both teams are doing well, and it's one of the ways you score goals in the National Hockey League now. Why? Because teams defend so well. And it's teams' ability to get pucks low to high in the zone. And for Florida, we talked about how Edmonton defends. Edmonton defends. This is the best Edmonton's defended. I haven't seen an Edmonton Oilers defend the house like they're defending right now in front of Skinner. Exceptionally well at defending this area of the ice. So they may be a challenge for Florida to get to this area of the ice off of the walls and from below the goal line. It may be hard. So for Florida, they're going to have to get pucks low to high in the zone. So we go LTH. It's low to high. And that means when the puck is here and the forward digs it out into the battle and you see the Edmonton Oilers defending below the top of the circles, all the room is going to be out here. So Florida's got to get the puck from here to their defense out here. And one thing Florida does, and one thing you need to do when you're going low to high in the zone and getting the puck back to the defense, is you have to know what's happening next. And you know what's happening next for the Florida Panthers? The puck is going here. The puck is going to the net. So you've got Bennett, you've got Kachuk, you've got everybody getting to that area of the ice. And this is where we talk about this area of the ice being so important. It's not just off of the forecheck. It's not just off of the wall battles. It's off the low to high play. How well can they get tips and screens in front of Skinner? They got 6 low to high goals so far in the playoffs. Edmonton's only given up 3 through the entire playoffs of pucks going low to high in the zone. And that's because Edmonton has defended so well. And what the other thing that Edmonton is doing so well off these low to high plays is they're getting in shooting lanes and they're blocking shots and they're getting in front of those shots that are put on by defense, because everybody's trying to generate low to high. Trust me, this area of the ice is hard to get to. This area of the ice hard. So teams get the puck back here where they feel they have more space and more time. So look for the Florida Panthers to do this. But guess what? Edmonton's doing the same thing. Edmonton's got 5 goals low to high in the zone, and you've seen how well this team shoots. You see how well Bouchard gets the puck through to the zone. But what's different is how well the Edmonton Oilers are getting to this area of the ice. How well Edmonton is getting to the net in the offensive zone. Something they haven't been able to do, winning battles along the walls and in the corners and then attacking the net. That's not an Edmonton Oilers team. The Edmonton Oilers give the puck to 97-29 and let them create active. Go skate around and create with skill. They have 10 goals. 10 goals this year getting pucks to this area of the ice, getting to the net. That's not low to high. That's off of puck battles. That's off the battles below the goal line and their ability to get to the net. And that is different for Edmonton, getting pucks to the net. It's different. Their ability to get to the blue paint, and Connor Brown is going to be a big guy that's going to have to add to that. And without Zach Hyman, they're going to need everybody to pitch into this area of the ice. Because McDavid's still going to be good up in this area of the ice, and Draisaitl's still going to be good down here. But everybody else has got to get here. Podkolzin's got to get here. He's got to get to the front of the net. He's got to be an active participant in that area of the ice. Kapanen's got to get to that area of the ice. They're going to have to be good in front of the net. Low to high, they've got 5, and Florida's given up 6. You want to score on Bobrovsky? You get people in front of him. You get tips, screens, and get in front of Bobrovsky. 6 of their goals have been given up by traffic and tips. They've given up. Florida's given up 15 off the rush, too, because we talk about that neutral zone turnover. We talk about those gaps. They could get behind them. So when you talk about what are the danger areas in this series, it's this area in front of the net. Who can get there? Edmonton has shown they've get more shot attempts than any other team in the league so far from inner slot shots. Can they do it against Florida, who defends better? Can Edmonton forwards get to this area? They're doing it better than they ever have before. Can they do it against Florida? And who is going to control between the blue lines? Is it going to be Edmonton chipping in behind and creating odd man rushes with the fastest team speed right now that we've seen? Or is the Florida Panthers tight gap going to create turnovers and start their transition going back the other way? Those are the key areas of the ice in the Stanley Cup Finals. And if you want to see what that looks like on video, make sure you tune in tomorrow. Because tomorrow, we're going to break down video. And we're going to break down video like you do if you're a video coach in this series. Because believe me, they have looked at everything. There's going to be no surprises. There's going to be no face-off play that they haven't seen. And these are two coaches that have made adjustments throughout the playoffs. And I've always said this, you want to be a good coach in this league, you got to make adjustments through the playoffs. And both of these teams have done that. So for me, all of this video scouting and all these stats and all these numbers we've talked about for the last 40 minutes are all about game one. Because once game one is played, everything changes. Everything, you're going to dissect everything differently than you did leading up to this. Right now, today for game one, you've looked at every game they've played in the playoffs. You've looked at what they did head-to-head during the regular season. You looked how they went down the stretch. All of these things are looked at. What they did for line combinations, what you're trying to do against certain players. After game one, it's all different, man. It is all different. That all changes. And then it's going to be about, gosh, we gave up 6 chances off the rush. We got to change something. Or, man, we couldn't get to the net front. What are we going to do? Well, let's spread out. Let's a little more spread, see if we can spread out their defense and create some openings in behind. All of those things will happen after game one. All the adjustments, and that's where the best coach is going to show his head who can make those adjustments from game one to game two. If you win game one, what can you do to make sure you do the same thing in game two? And if you lose game one, what are we going to do differently? So make sure you tune in tomorrow because we're going to go through all the video and all the things I talked about. We're going to see strengths and weaknesses and break down some film on these two teams going into the Stanley Cup Final. And to do that, make sure you subscribe to Inside the Coach's Room so you don't miss any of these breakdowns. I'm going to continue to break these two teams down on video until they award a Stanley Cup. We're going to go game by game. We're going to see who did good, who did bad, what do they need to do different. We're going to do it every single day. So make sure you subscribe to Inside the Coach's Room so you don't miss any of these video breakdowns. I want to thank everybody for coming inside the Coach's Room. If you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. And we're going to have interviews coming up. I've got some plans heading to Toronto in a couple of weeks, hoping to get some coaches and video coaches on for some interviews. A lot coming up over the summer on teaching the game of hockey. We're going to get the whiteboard out a lot over the summer. So don't think we're going away during the summer either. So thanks for coming inside the Coach's Room. I'm a former NHL video coach. I've done this for 20 years. I was inside NHL coaching rooms and breaking down game film. It's what I did for a living. And that's why my perspective is a little bit different. I'm not a player. Didn't play in the National Hockey League. You hear enough guys that have played and they'll put you in their shoes. You've heard a lot of reporters that ask the questions, that know what's going on and get the answers from somebody else. I don't do that either. I come from a perspective from inside the coach's room. So thanks for joining me. I'm Petey, and as always, we'll see you at the